Okay, here I am. Close this. Hi, everybody. Hi, ladies. This is Chaya Parkoff from the Jewish Experience in my little cap today. And I am here with you for our Wednesday, Spiritual Fitness Wednesdays. And it is the 21st of Shvat, and it is the 3rd of February, 2021. And we might have a little bit of a short class today because I had my second vaccine yesterday. Very grateful. I work in healthcare, so this was, I get to feel a little more confident. And actually what's interesting is my clients feel more confident knowing that I've been vaccinated. Isn't that interesting? Even though it doesn't, I think you can still get it. You just get a lesser bad reaction or something, but it's all in God's hands. I can just do our footwork. And for me, this was my footwork. So anyway, I hear you start to feel bad. I'm already not feeling so great, so it may go a little early. I want to make sure we're recording. I don't think we're yep, we are recording. Okay. So we are learning together Rebel and Emunah, which is the principles of faith that was sent down by the Rambam. And it is, hold on, I'm just going to do a little situation here. And it is, there we go. It is Rav Moshe Shapiro, the classes that he gave on these was written down in here. Not his notes, but what his students wrote based on what he taught. So we're in the chapter, still in the overview, Shiur 3, we're on page 33. Last week we're beginning now with man's obligation. So we're in the middle of page 33. Don't worry if you don't have the book. I'm going to read and then we'll talk about the ideas, and feel free always to ask any questions, either in the chat box, which always makes me stressed out because I don't know when it's asking me to look at it, but not stressed out, but I mean, like, I don't want to miss it. Or you can just unmute yourself and say, hey, hi, I have a question or a comment or anything like that. So we are in Do Not Go Exploring After Your Heart. We were talking last week about imagination versus the intellect, that we have this incredible capacity to connect with the divine flow, and intellect, and we have this intellect that can be rational and really think things through as they are, but we also have imagination that is very emotional, and it can totally distort things and creates our reality. And this is what we're all doing all the time. We're all always creating our realities based on our imagination, not on reality. And so when it says do not go exploring after your heart, it really means the part of the mind that's the imagination. Heart in this case is the mind, and it's the imagination. So we don't want to go exploring after our imagination. Like, sometimes they say the joke, like, don't go going in your head alone. Being in your head a lot is like going into a bad neighborhood alone. Don't go in there alone. You want to make sure that you can really create a whole narrative. And I can tell you, as a therapist, we create incredible narratives, and they're not even happening. I remember 30 something years ago, it was right at the depths of, I was just getting out of my eating disorder. I was just starting to be in recovery. By the way, I wrote an article that was prompted in me by Rabbi Twersky's death. Actually wrote an email for the Women's Experience, the Jewish Experience women's email, which you probably all got. If not, you should be on the email list. And so I had to write the Monday email. It was my turn. And I wrote about Rabbi Twersky. And then I got a bunch of people came back to me and said, this was so good. This was so good. Thank you so much. That I decided to send it to Aish.com and see if they were interested in publishing it. And Rabbi Cooper Smith said yes. So they did a beautiful job editing it, because I just kind of poured it out. And so it is on the website. And I think I sent it in our little group chat. So I was saying 30 years ago when I was first introduced, and I was in the beginning of my program, I was 20 years old, I was very young. And I remember sitting on the steps of where the meeting was, freaking out about something that I was going to have to do in like 3 months or 2 months from now. And I was sitting there with this woman named Anne. I think it was McNamara. That was her name. I even remember it. I haven't seen her since then, probably. And I said, oh my God, but I have to do this. And I was like, and she said to me, Chaya, you're sitting on the steps of the Alano Club. It is August 1st. It is not October 15th. You are right here. You know, my imagination took over what was going to happen in this future thing. And it was all made up. It's all made up, right? Because that's the imagination. So, okay. So it says man's obligation, and the other piece of what we talked about last week is that really we think we're living in reality. Yes. I'm leaving. Okay, thank you so much. Hang on, I'm teaching. Hang on, everybody. I'm just pausing. Okay, sorry, everybody. It's my cleaning lady. I gave myself the gift of a cleaning lady. Okay, I'm gonna have to go down to every other week, but okay, we are back. So we said that there will come a day when we're going to understand that we're living. It says here, woe to the person who lives life like a dream with images flashing before him that seems so real that he may even experience physical pain. Yet when he awakens, he understands that it was just a dream and not reality. But people live like that. I call it daymares, right? We have daymares. We also have to wake up. We're not sleeping, right? But we are. Because the more we can connect to the real world, the Metziut, the world of Torah, the more we will realize that we had been living in a dream. And, understanding that the mitzvot are not just these rules. I was talking to Bonnie about this last night because my teacher talked about this. Not these, we'll get to it probably at some point, but not these rules that we're just given because big man in the sky and he's going to make us do all these things. Or that it was somehow God's response to the world, that like we needed the mitzvot because look at the world and we need to figure out a way to navigate it. It's like, no, Hashem created the world and the mitzvot to help navigate it. But it wasn't a response to the world. It was when he created the world. It says, I believe in the Gemara, Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world, right? So like, here's this way of navigating the system so that it will work correctly, so that our lives will work correctly. So just like there are kind of, you do enough, you drink alcohol, so much alcohol and so much alcohol and so much alcohol that eventually your liver is going to become cirrhosis of the liver, right? We see this happens. That is just a law of what happens because we're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to drink that much alcohol that it destroys your liver, right? It's just the way, it's just the laws of the way your body works. Well, the way life works comes with some instructions, which is our Torah, and you can do it. You can do the things that maybe that Hashem's, the Torah says, don't do this or do this. You can not do the things that the commandments that we're supposed to do. And you could do the things that you're not supposed to do, but understand that you're tampering with the system. You're not using the machinery, so to speak, properly, the machinery of our bodies, the machinery of our minds, our spirit, our souls, and the world itself, and that it will backfire. It's that we got a gift. We have the instruction manual of how to navigate this world. And so we need to wake up to that. That's what he's saying. So now it says, man's obligation, the mind's reality over imagination and dreams. I may run out of charge, in which case I will run downstairs and get my cord. Humans must get their mind to control their imagination. Whenever you see an image, you must bring it to your intellect to judge whether the conclusion you draw from it has any validity. One who fails to do this has not taken the first step towards serving God. Actually, okay, so this is like, I don't know if he's going to talk about this, but this is like we talked about Chachma Bina Da'as. Chachma is the information you get. Bina is the analyzing it, right? So that you can eventually get to the da'as, that the analyzing it and dissecting it and looking at it to really find out, is this accurate information? And then when we do, we're able to get to a higher level of knowledge and understanding. So actually, they've not even taken the first step to being a human being, since dreaming is common to both humans and animals. So if we don't analyze our thinking, meaning not like, oh, I got to get in there and dissect everything, but it's like, if I whenever he sees an image, it is, in a sense, not in the sense that you want to be like thinking about your thinking all the time, but understanding that, I think the bigger message is just understand that the conclusion you're drawing from what you see is often not what it actually is. And that's why we have to like look at it rationally. A person who lives in a world of dreams, as developed as they may be, is still on the level of an animal, because an animal also retains images in their consciousness and they can motivate them. In order to, they have memory. Animals have memory. In order to truly be a man, a human, one must free oneself from the power of the visions and go over to the intellect and its methodology. Now, when we're first doing this and really trying to understand, it's best to, that's why it's Rabbi Aryeh Niven, who I learned with for many years, he would say you want to have a tripod of objectivity. You want to have a few people in your life, 3, tripod would be a good amount, who can Google out, we're like right here, in things that we're seeing in our lives, but that can Google out and give you perspective, so that you can say, am I off here? Like, this is what I'm seeing. Help me understand this. A clue is that, now I'm not saying this is foolproof, but for me, it has been helpful. And there are sources to kind of support this, but your imagination could still get in there and make up a story. So it's not foolproof, but it's a pretty good barometer, is that when whatever the story I'm making up is disempowering, or for sure against Torah, against what the Torah, tells us, it's automatically, you can assume it's like not correct. Okay, it's not foolproof. The Torah part is, but the empowering part maybe, because I can manipulate that. But generally speaking, if it doesn't empower me, it's likely kind of a story I'm telling myself, whether it's beating myself up. I wrote in the article about, understanding that Rabbi Twersky and his leaving us in his death, he taught us some things. One thing is that our self-esteem is not up for debate, period. You're made in the image and likeness of Hashem. You have the capacity to connect to Hashem on a level that is beyond, especially as a Jewish person, but as a human being, first as a human being and then as a Jew, that it's just not even up for debate, right? So we need to know that and not ever debate that. And never debate our worthiness or anyone else's worthiness, but especially if we're debating our own worthiness, right? To just know right away, like, that's not true. It's just not true. There may be things we have to change in our life. Absolutely. That's called being a human being. But I'm a piece of dirt and I'm not worthy of anything, that is just not even, it's like ridiculous. It's a nightmare that you're having, but you are awake and you think it's true. So having people in your life that you can say, this is what's on my mind, this is what I'm thinking about myself, can you give me some perspective? Okay, so the brain does not have visions. Okay, the brain doesn't have visions. The brain is a computer. It acts according to the images it sees. Okay, the mind is not the brain. We're not talking, the mind is something much bigger, much higher. It is a spiritual component. It acts according to the brain acts according to the images it sees, but it decides which are valid and true and comes to a rational conclusion. So that's where the brain's a computer. It goes lie, truth, lie, right? It's supposed to be filtering out. But if one fails to activate his intellect. His dreams become his reality. And this is the power of the Yetzer Hara, the inclination to evil. We know, and he's going to talk about it right here. The word Yetzer stems from the word Yetzirah, which means forming, taking matter and giving it a form. The Yetzer Hara shapes a person's being until he sees his dreams as his existence, until they feel that this is their world and this is their purpose in life. A true existence is defined by the mind. This is the Yetzer HaTov, the inclination to good. The struggle between the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara is about whether man creates a world of truth and good with his intellect, or a world of falsehood and evil, Ra. Ra doesn't mean evil. We're going to talk about this in a second, with his imagination. Just reviewing, because it's so important to remember this, Yetzer Hara, it's not some evil force, right? Ra means it doesn't work, it's broken. It's not suitable for its purpose, okay? If it's a chair and it only has 2 legs, it's broken, it's not working, it's not suitable for its purpose, which is for a person to sit on it, right? It's Ra. A ladder that is broken is a shlab Ra, Ra'ui, I think. So Yetzer is form, the creative energy that forms things. Ra, that's broken, that's not good, that's not suitable for us. So my Yetzer Hara is using my creative energy for things that are gonna be broken, that are not gonna be suitable for me to work. Okay. Yetzer HaTov is using my creative energies for things that are working, that do. That is very interesting. Luz just had a great point. So many words in English you can see that they stemmed from Hebrew. For example, fruit, the word fruit in Hebrew is perut. In English, it's fruit, right? So she said, and or is light. Aura is like the light you see around a person, okay? I realized that once during a class. I was like, aura and aura. So Luz just had a brilliant one. She said raw and raw. Something that's raw, when we describe something that's raw, it's not refined. It's not refined. It didn't go through a refinement process, right? Raw, it's not refined. So using my creative energies for things that it's not refined, it's not suitable for what it's meant to be for. Beautiful, beautiful, Luz. Thank you. Okay. When the images of the imagination are perceived as reality, which is what we're always doing, this is the doing of the Yetzer Hara, meaning when the image of the imagination are perceiving my reality. I'm not going into my intellect, which uses my knowledge of Torah and the purpose for the world, all these things that we're learning and that we'll continue learning about. Then it's this is doing the work. This is the doing of the Yetzer Hara. You're using your energy for something. So I'm spending energy in my imagination. Okay, that's not helpful. A lot of times when I'm in with a client in a counseling session, coaching session, they'll tell me that they're doing. I'll go, well, how helpful is that? And how helpful is it? And they usually laugh because it's obvious that thinking that they're going down is just not helpful. It's not helpful. But that's the imagination. It'll take us all sorts of places, and very dark places it can take people. In order to defeat the Yetzer Hara, we must first overcome its basis and cause and not succumb to the world of images. So knowing, and this is where the whole field of the 3 principles in psychology, it's called the 3 principles or innate health. There's a whole Rabbi Michal Twersky, Rabbi Twersky Alav Shalom's, Rabbi Abraham Twersky Alav Shalom's brother, Rabbi Michal Twersky in Milwaukee, started something called the Twersky Wellness Institute, which, and they use this paradigm, understanding that we're constantly thinking and seeing these images and making up stories. And so they've helped a lot of people by teaching this idea of just understand this is what's happening. We're making up stuff. Right here it is in the Torah, right? It's and why did he develop that this institute, it's a virtual institute, is because he saw the mental well-being of the Jewish people was just like going down, and he kept watching and watching and watching, and then he would look for tools, different approaches, and all of them weren't universal, didn't explain it all the time for every human being, until he fell upon these 3 principles that some man kind of articulated. And when he articulated it, it made a lot of sense, and it helped a lot of people, and it helping up lots and lots of Jewish people, There are huge amounts of people in the Jewish world, all shapes and sizes of the Jewish community, and very much particularly in the Orthodox community, and they're helping so many people. It's really like crazy how many people have just overcome from depression, anxiety, and suicide, and drug addiction, and because they see that they're just believing these messages that their imagination is telling them. They're not. So just knowing that can help. Just knowing that. So now you can kind of be curious, right? That's the Bina, and say, is that really accurate? Maybe this is my imagination running away with me, right? Like a leash, whoop, and it just takes you on a ride. So now we have a tool here. It's saying, in order to defeat this, using creative energy, which is spending time in my imagination, which is really kind of useless and wasting energy, when I could be using it for the Yetzer Tov, I could be using it for using my creative forces for good. In order to defeat this, we must first overcome its basis and cause and not succumb to the world of images. This is the purpose of the Torah's prohibitions against wandering after our heart and our eyes. It teaches us that to enter a world of images is to enter a world of impurity, to the point where we cannot extricate ourselves without help from an outside force, similar to falling into quicksand. You can't get yourself out of quicksand. Somebody has to get you out. This is the essence of the prohibition against thinking about idol worship and lust. So when we think about, do not go after your heart and eyes, we're thinking, oh, don't commit adultery, don't look at pornography, which is a huge problem in the world today. Do not, right? No, it's talking about don't run away with, because that's imagination. Talk about imagination, right? Oh, I imagine this picture, and then I imagine that other person is going to be better for me than this person. That's all imagination. It's all made up. So it's saying but not just in that area of life, but in all areas of life. Don't get caught with your imagination. Be a discerning person. Torah demands us to use our intellect. Even when it comes to Emunah, right? We've learned faith. It's not pure, just blind faith, and we just kind of okay, right? No, we need to have a sophisticated understanding of what it is to mean to have Emunah, to steep and stake in the ground, knowing that Hashem Ein od milvado, there's nothing but Hashem. It requires us to use our intellect. You know what your imagination can do? Your imagination can go, oh, come on, that doesn't really mean anything. Oh, nothing's going to happen to me if I don't do this, that, or the other thing, right? Oh, what's the big deal if I do that? Oh, I can go, do things that we know we're not supposed to do. That's imagination. So it's telling us here, be careful here. This is okay. So the imagination as a tool for the intellect. Imagination now is a tool for the intellect. Let's hear this. Human's imagination was given to him as a tool for his intellect, so we can use it properly. The Arizal tells us at the end of his Sefer Eitz Chaim, he means that humans, with their mind, cannot function in the world without the imagination that preserves all of the images that they have seen, the scents that they have smelled, the sounds that they have heard, and the feel of the objects that they have touched. The voices and the images are those that are preserved the most. They make the greatest impression and are the strongest and richest. Although I've heard that scent is very rich as well. The imagination preserves these experiences, and with these memories, a person can use their mind to judge and determine the path they will take. Now, this has a lot to do with post-traumatic stress disorder, because what post-traumatic stress disorder is in this very moment, something, I hear a sound, I smell something, I see an image, it takes me back to that bad experience. And now my imagination says it's happening to me right now, because we have this multi-sensory experience of whatever is coming through, whatever thinking we've got coming through. So the ability to discern and understand, just like that friend said to me, Chaya, you're sitting on the steps of the Emunah Club. You're in Portland, Oregon. You're not in New York. It's not September or October, whatever it was. It's, it's August. It's the same thing as being able to say, Chaya, that's not happening now. This is where you are right now. Look at your feet. That's where you are. You're not in that dangerous situation. There is no, my teacher, Racheli Miller used to say, there's no danger. There's no danger. Just know we're not dangerous. So it can allow us, here's a tool for a person to be able to get free from the incredible safety, what's it called? Straitjacket that PTSD can have on us if we don't understand that it's just my imagination right now, but we have a multi-sensory system. We feel, we see, we hear, it feels as if it's happening right now, but it's not. And that's the part of discerning. That's the intellect, being able to use the intellect. Now he says, if you don't refine this on your own, you're going to need outsiders. That's okay. It's okay to use outsiders. It's all right. It's totally all right. We need each other. We help each other. And that's why that tripod of objectivity is so important to have, to be able to, that they know you well enough to be able to say, no, sweetie, that's not what's going on right now. You're feeling as if it is, but it's not. You're safe. It's okay. And this begins the healing. And the healing is very quick, because now you have a whole new perspective on it. It's not like, oh, you had this experience and now you are damaged, which is another made up message, completely made up message. You cannot be damaged. In fact, I have to find this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful idea about the luchos, the tablets and damage. Somebody remind me to find that, and I'll find a beautiful idea I read about that. Okay, so if not for the imagination, the mind, okay, hold on. The imagination preserves these experiences, and with these memories, a person can use his mind to judge and determine the path he will take. So we're going to use our imagination. We're going to analyze it. We're going to understand when it starts to run away. I'm going to go, wait a second. Is this really true? I'm going to utilize I'm going to use the imagination to decipher the imagination, in a sense, because it's storing a lot of information. If not for the imagination, the mind would not have material to work with. And I see this with patients with dementia, right? Their brain stops being able to store the new memories. So all they have are the old ones, which is why I can talk to somebody, I have a 101-year-old patient, actually a Jewish lady, lives in an assisted living that I see her at, and she can remember, she can't remember like yesterday or even a few minutes ago, or what I just said, but she can remember where she lived in New York and when she worked, you know, in the garment district and where she went to school and where she went to high school. She can remember that because that's stored already. But the new stuff for quite a while now isn't storing anymore. So it's actually helpful. Sometimes people will say, you know, she keeps forgetting. And it's like, no, actually, it never got stored in the first place. So it's not that she forgot. It's like a photo album. The picture isn't in there. All that's stored right now is feelings, which is why I would say feelings are more important than facts when we're dealing with people with dementia, because we want them to feel good in this moment, not say, no, it's not 1955 at a sock hop, it's 2021, mom, right? No, we don't do that, because where they are is where their reality is right now, and that they can enjoy. And we want to have those moments with them. There's just a little bit of elder psychology nuggets. Okay. If not for the imagination, the mind would not have material to work with. Only after a person gets a full picture based on all that he has perceived can he judge what is relevant and truthful to his existence and what is false. Only then can he ask, what can these images teach me? In contrast, in the world of the imagination, no questions are asked, because the imagination exists in a world of its own. Okay, so the mind is saying, hold on a second, let's decipher this imagination, this thing going on here. But if it's just the imagination on its own, forget it. It's going to fly and take you away. No questions are asked because there's no need for answers. The imagination is a self-sufficient world sustained by images alone. It has no intellect to help understand it. It has no bina. It doesn't have the bina. It doesn't have bain between what it looks like and what it actually is the bina. That's what we have. It's the ability, and it's a builder. It builds our understanding, true understanding. Okay. While the mind raises questions and tries to furnish answers, the imagination accepts everything it sees and gives it credence. Not only does it accept it, but then it goes and you'll make up stories to actually have it be a reality for you. You actually, we give a credence. We see? So blah, 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 blah. Okay. A person who is able to use the images as a tool for his mind and not under the influence, a tool for his mind, a person who is able to use the images as a tool for his mind is not under the influence of the imagination. This is how we can understand why Joseph Joseph, was able to interpret dreams. Because Joseph controlled his eyes. He had control over his imagination. Because he distanced himself from all the thoughts of sexual immorality, he was able to use his power of imagination as a tool for his intellect. He subjugated his imagination to his mind and used it as a tool for interpreting dreams. Anyone who has not reached this level still lives in the world of his dreams and therefore cannot interpret them. That's a good way to, we don't go to psychics, okay? We don't do that. I'm just gonna tell my daughter I'm teaching a class. Hold on. Hi, I'm teaching my Jewish experience class right now. In fact, you're not on camera, but we're recording you.
The class. Enjoy.
There's Maya. Okay, I'll call you back.
Call me later.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you too. Okay. He subjugated his imagination to his mind and used it as a tool for interpreting dreams. And okay, so we don't go to psychics, people who say they're now there are people who have gifts and what have you. It's very, 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 you have to be very, very careful about about going to people like that, because it's just not stuff that we play around with. Is there abilities? Yes, but we don't pretty much assume anyone you go down the street, you see sight in them. That's not, and it can be very dangerous. because then you'll use your imagination based on what they tell you and create a whole story. And then that'll be your reality. Okay, this ability to control one's imagination can help us understand how Daniel was able to interpret King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Nebuchadnezzar, so funny to watch it, see it in English. Nebuchadnezzar's dreams. He could do so because he divorced himself from his desire for food. See the first chapter of Sefer Daniel about how careful Daniel was not to contaminate himself with the food provided by the king Nebuchadnezzar. So we're going to stop here today. I think also the part with Yosef Hatzadik was, when he was, Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, and he was very, very tempted, extremely tempted, but he was able to get away. And they say, it says that tshuva, when you know that you've done tshuva, is when you're faced with the same situation and you, and when you're faced with the same situation and you're able to overcome it, right? You're able to overcome it. And I believe, I don't know the pasuk and exactly, but it says that he was able to see an image of his father. Okay, and that gave him the strength to say no. Okay, that is using your imagination as a tool for the intellect. He was deciphering, and when he saw the image of his father, that's what he brought up, because he had refined himself so much, utilized his creative energies for good. He was able to bring up the image of his father, which allowed him to go, whoa, no way, I'm not doing this. And he was able, and then you see he was able to interpret dreams, which ultimately led him to being the second in command in Egypt. And you know the story. We're getting close to the story soon. Actually, just a few months till Pesach, which I love Pesach. And anyway, so I think we're going to end here today. I'm not going to read anymore because it's starting a new section, but does anybody have any comments or questions or just thoughts on what we talked about today? Okay, and again, I'm cutting it short today because I just had my second vaccine and starting to feel a little, so we will see you next Wednesday, I guess the 10th of February. And we will continue with our learning. And may our learning that we did today and all of the ramifications and all of the ripple effects that it has, if you share anything that you learned with others and that inspires them, or they pocket it away somewhere maybe for the future, that it should be a merit for an aliyah, the rising up of the soul of, I don't know his name in Hebrew, but of Rabbi Avraham Twersky. May his memory always be for a blessing. Right? Have a great week, everybody, and have a Shabbat Shalom.